Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Write, Publish, Connect, a video series by Aaxel Author Services. My name's Natalie, and Alexa is back with us today. She's the founder of Aaxel Author Services. Hey, Alexa.
Hey, Natalie. Always nice talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're not doing publishing today. We were really going to be focusing on the manuscript / writing part of your book. And I know you've shared tons of stories with me, so I know that there's things that are really important when you're looking at a manuscript. And what are some of the things you want to tackle today, just so everybody's on the up and up?
Sure. So let's just talk. I figured maybe a nice way to have this conversation is talking about some of the things that, at least for fiction writers, you want to avoid doing. So
common mistakes.
Common mistakes, exactly. We at Aaxel Author Services, we do a lot of manuscript evaluation / developmental editing. Authors come to us, okay, is this any good? And we proceed and we start dissecting the manuscript to see what's good and what could use some improvement. And there are definitely common pitfalls that a lot of writers are victim to. So I would say one of the biggest ones are what I call information dumps. Okay. And another one would be dialogue and just some challenges with dialogue. So with information dumps are literally just that. It is a dump of information that writers tend to victimize their readers with when they feel that they need to provide as much background information on a character, on a situation, otherwise the reader will be lost. And frequently you'll see information dumps when new characters are introduced or at the very beginning of a manuscript. So if we're talking
and they think that they're doing great though, right? They think this is
absolutely. Absolutely. My reader needs every bit of this information or else they will be lost and they will not catch the importance of my story. So that's what they think. And of course, it's definitely incorrect. So let's say you're writing a story and your character is called Rose and you want to introduce Rose. So most writers will have the tendency of just introducing Rose and giving us her whole life story. Rose was born somewhere. She grew up somewhere else. This was her favorite snack growing up. This was her favorite television show. The name of her first boyfriend. Her parents divorced when she was 15, and on and on and on and on. And the reader, what is the reader thinking? They're thinking, okay, this is all great, but what's happening now? Like, what is going on right in this moment? And this is something a lot of writers are afraid of doing, is just getting into the story. So the best way to start a chapter or a manuscript, start it in action, get something happening as soon as possible. So of course, when I give writers this advice, they'll frequently say, yeah, but Alexa, but where do I put in all that back information about Rose and her parents? Well, the thing is you show us those things gradually. So in every scene, you pull back another layer of Rose. So maybe Rose is at, I don't know, at the local Target and she runs in to her first boyfriend from high school. And that ends up being a critical moment. But maybe that's where you could show us the history that she has with this guy, as opposed to dumping it all at the beginning of the manuscript. So information dumps are a huge thing to resolve. And they're not easy to fix because it's not easy to fix. If you've put all that vital information in one concentrated area, you know, it's admittedly not an easy feat to take all of that out and then start sprinkling it a little bit everywhere. But that's kind of what you should be doing.
So is there a way for them to avoid this path or?
Yeah, well, I mean, the most obvious thing is to just be aware of the fact of when you're doing it. So when you're introducing a character, do you suddenly have like a paragraph of information? Read back that paragraph if it's really important, and sometimes it is. There's nothing wrong with backstory. Then that's okay, keep it. but are you introducing things that maybe the reader only needs to know later on, and that in this moment you're interfering with the action of the scene? Well, maybe you have to move it somewhere else.
So would it, I mean, could they outline where they want to drop these nuggets, like throughout the story, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. I mean, if you want, think about where look at your manuscript. Where is your author? What is your character doing in that particular moment?
Yeah.
And what important backstory, if any, is necessary? Because writers just feel the need to provide all this backstory because they're worried that the reader will be lost without it. And it's a leap of faith to just trust that, you know what, I can start with the scene. Rose can be grocery shopping. The reader, if the scene is well crafted, the reader's not really going to care about all the facts about Rose. They're going to be happy to come along for the ride. It's reading a fictionist journey. I want to know more about this person. You don't have to tell me everything from the get-go. As long as you reveal to me what I need in that moment, then that's good.
I love it. So drop the nuggets, kind of lay it out where you want to put them. Yeah.
Lay it out. Exactly. And if you have more than a paragraph of backstory at a time, really stop and think and say, okay, let me reread this. Am I giving away too much too soon? Am I giving away things that maybe the reader never needs to know? Because that's something else. I know in writing, when it comes time to crafting characters, very often we are encouraged as writers, and I count myself as a writer too, we're encouraged to provide these elaborate backstories for our characters. And this is a very important exercise, but that's an important exercise for the writer so that you can really connect with your character. It doesn't mean that all of the stuff that you have compiled in the history of your character has to go into the manuscript.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've dealt with the dump.
Yep.
If you're writing, you are not dumping anymore.
Do not dump.
You're not dumping.
Readers do not like dumping.
And I think, and I agree with you that the other tricky part is the dialogue, because I love to read, and you see sometimes like, where is this going, or what are they trying to say? Yeah. What is your perspective, or what are the things you've seen when it comes to dialogue and authors that you're meeting?
So one of the first things that comes to mind when I think about dialogue is something a professor told me in university, because I studied creative writing, and he told me dialogue is like everyday conversation, only better. And that's very true. Dialogue, good dialogue has to feel like the way we talk, but it has to be elevated, because when you have a conversation with a friend, you're not speaking eloquently. Your sentences aren't always perfectly refined. So, but if you're reading a good work of fiction, the dialogue is elevated just enough so that it kind of escapes the mediocrity of all of those verbal crutches. Yeah. But it's not formal and stiff. And I just see a lot of authors, they feel that dialogue has to be perfect and people have to speak very eloquently all the time. And something else that happens a lot in dialogue is information dumps in dialogue. I'm sure you've seen this in worse fiction that you've read as opposed to better, but characters who clearly are meant to be sharing information to the reader. So let's say two people are sitting down having breakfast and they're talking about Rose. All of a sudden, character one has a whole paragraph. Well, I remember when Rose was 5 years old and blah, 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 blah. And then after like a paragraph, character number two comes in and he or she has his own paragraph of blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden you've got this dialogue, but it's in monologue. So character one has a monologue, then character number two, and that's just not the way people speak. If you want to occasionally give a character a longer paragraph because they're particularly passionate about something in that moment and it makes sense for the scene, go ahead. But dialogue should be relaxed, and don't use your characters as tools, if you will, to explicitly communicate important stuff to the reader. The reader should be able to catch those things through the undertone. So for instance, if someone doesn't feel like talking, well, maybe the person doesn't say, I don't really feel like talking. Maybe they're talking in very short sentences, and the reader will hopefully know, well, yeah, I get the sense this character isn't in the mood for this conversation right now, without the character saying, you know, Natalie, I don't feel like talking much right now. Okay, well, do you see how that already undercuts the impact, as opposed to just Natalie being, yeah, whatever. You know, there are less direct ways of expressing emotion and intent.
And I think too, the thing that came to mind for me was, if you have characters from different parts of a country, you know, I think of one I just read recently from the south side of Chicago. Well, I noticed that some of the, you know, words were really particular to that area or of that timeline.
Yes.
And I think honoring that in a character is important, because it gives the character, it tells you a lot about the character, but it also tells you about, you know, how they speak, where they're from. So that's another level.
Absolutely. And that's such an important thing. So for instance, maybe you want to have one character who's very eloquent and who always speaks as if they're ready to give a speech. If that's important and it makes sense for the character, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then don't have all the other characters sound that eloquent, you see, because that undercuts it. That undercuts the impact, the impression that character will make on the reader.
Okay. So anybody who's watching this today, they want to get started. In the beginning, you mentioned get into action. So not necessarily the monologue at the beginning, but really get in, jump right into it. You know, as a speaking coach, right? We would say in a speech, like, jump right in. So you want your reader to jump right in. That would be your top tip for today.
Absolutely. Just jump right in. Get it. You know what? Just think of it as a flower.
Yeah.
Get to the core, get into that center, and then you'll be able to flesh out all the petals around. It's okay. Readers don't need to know all the petals. They want to get to the heart of the matter as soon as possible, because think about it, readers, especially for fiction, they're going to read those first couple of pages. They want to be drawn in. Yeah. I mean, yes, they want to learn about the characters, but they just want to feel like, wow, something is happening here, and I want to know more. So jump right in.
Love it. Thanks so much, Alexa. Now, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way of doing that?
Okay, so there are many ways. I mean, if you go on the website, www.aaxelauthorservices.com, you will see there are contact forms to fill out. We actually, speaking about manuscripts, I would want to mention that we offer a promotional manuscript evaluation session where people can get 10 pages, their first 10 pages evaluated for the very low price of $47.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
The whole idea is, so if people want to know, so am I making some of these mistakes? Am I jumping right in? Is my dialogue engaging? Well, we certainly do manuscript evaluation, so you can learn more at the website, or also drop us an email, info@aaxelauthorservices.com.
I love it. Okay, so if you're looking for more support or more information, or you want to take advantage of that low price to get your first 10 pages read, make sure you reach out to Alexa and her team. Thanks so much for tuning in to our episode today. And please remember, at Aaxel Author Services, we won't let you publish crap. Whatever you choose to do today, have an incredible day, everybody. See you soon. Thanks, Alexa.
Thank you, Natalie. Take care.